Hello. Welcome to Andy Tales. After watching the video, make sure there's no one else in the room. Don't forget to write your city and the time in the comments.
Story 1. The Bus Window.
I've always been a creature of habit. Same morning coffee, same work route, same seat on the bus. I used to like that routine. It made me feel in control, safe. But routine can make you predictable, and being predictable makes you visible. It started with a face. Middle seat, third row, directly across from me. I only noticed because of how still he was. Everyone else would scroll through their phones, sip coffee, read, but not him. He just watched. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it, just a quiet guy who happened to sit across from me. But then, he started showing up every day, same place, same expression, never blinking, never distracted, just locked in on me. Then I started to test it. One morning, I got off 2 stops early, walked the rest of the way. He got off too, no hesitation, same distance behind me the whole time. The next day, I switched buses completely, took a longer route, and just as I was getting comfortable in a window seat near the back, I saw him, standing at the front of the bus, staring at me through the rearview mirror. He never tried to speak, never approached, but something about his eyes, they didn't look at me like I was a person, more like a puzzle. That night, I got home and checked my mail. Among the usual bills and junk was a small, square envelope, no name, no stamp, just tucked into my mailbox. Inside was a photo, blurry, black and white, me, sitting on the bus, taken through a window. There was no message, just that single image. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I didn't go to work. I stayed inside, curtains drawn, jumping at every noise. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. New Instagram message. The account had no photo, no posts, no followers, just a username that looked randomly generated. The message read, "You shouldn't skip work, people notice." That was it. No context, no name, but I knew it was him. I deleted the message and blocked the account. And then the paper airplane started. The first one came under my door 2 nights later, a simple white fold with neat handwriting inside. Red sweater today, bold choice. I hadn't worn a red sweater since college. I'd found it at the back of my closet that morning and thought nothing of it, but someone had seen me in it, someone close enough to notice something I barely remembered choosing. Then another came. "I liked when you smiled at the barista." And another. "I missed the window view." That line hit differently, the bus, the seat, the stare. But the next note was worse. It said, "Stop pulling your curtains, you know I hate that." I went to the police. They asked if I had a name, a license plate, even a photo. I showed them the blurry picture from the mailbox. They shrugged. "Could be anyone," they said, "keep your doors locked." Useless. So I did what anyone would do. I installed cameras. I changed my locks. I even took a week off work and stayed with my sister across town. For a while, everything was quiet. Until one night, around 3 a.m., her dog started barking like crazy. When we checked the front porch, nothing. But the next morning, folded neatly under the welcome mat, was a paper airplane. Cute dog, not a fan of barking though. I decided to move. I didn't tell anyone my new address. I quit my job and started working remotely. New city, new place, new name on the mailbox. For the first time in months, I felt okay. Until yesterday. I was walking home from the store. It was chilly out, and I had that same red sweater on. The wind picked up, and I reached up to adjust my hood. That's when I noticed the bus parked across the street. No route number, no passengers. Just one man in the middle seat. Third row. Staring out the window. Watching me.
Story 2. Mom said don't reply.
I had always believed that parents could protect you from anything scary, but on this day, I learned that sometimes they too are powerless. It was a typical summer morning. Mom and I were sitting at the kitchen table. I was poking at my breakfast in that way teenagers do, while she was telling me about her day. Her gaze, which was usually so sure of everything, seemed a little unsettled as she stared at her phone screen. I didn't think much of it. Mom was always on her phone. reading the news or chatting with people. But this time, something was different. Her fingers frowned over the screen, and for a few moments, she simply stared at it, like she was processing something difficult. "Do you know how much I love you?" "Right." Her voice was soft, almost too quiet, like she was speaking to herself rather than me. I raised my eyes to respond, but before I could, her hand came up to gently press against my face, stopping me. There was something strange in her eyes, something I couldn't quite understand. It was a mix of fear and something else, something I had never seen before. "Are you feeling okay?" I asked, a bit confused by her sudden mood shift. But Mom just shook her head, letting out a small sigh. "Everything's fine, honey. Don't worry." I didn't press her further. No, a growing unease settled in my stomach. Something was wrong. I could feel it, but I brushed it off as one of those fleeting moments adults sometimes have. What happened next, however, would stay with me forever. She looked at her phone again, but I caught a glimpse of the screen. It wasn't intentional, but the message that flashed on the display immediately caught my attention. The words were bold and urgent. "Don't reply." My heart skipped a beat. Those two words stuck with me. They felt wrong, unsettling, like something was being hidden from me. But before I could say anything, Mom quickly turned off the screen and put the phone down on the table. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "It's nothing," she replied quickly, almost too quickly. "Just a random text. Don't worry about it." But I couldn't stop worrying. I could see the tension in her shoulders and the way her fingers clenched the edge of the table. Something wasn't right. For the next few days, I noticed Mom was acting differently. She was more on edge, constantly checking her phone, her face pale and strained. She would leave the room if a message came through, always so secretive, like she didn't want me to see or hear anything. It made me anxious, and then it happened. One afternoon, while Mom was out grocery shopping, I was home alone when a text popped up on my phone. It was from an unknown number. My breath caught in my throat as I read the message. "You're too curious." I stared at it for a moment, my fingers frowned on the screen. A cold wave of dread washed over me. Who was this person? How did they know I'd been looking at Mom's phone? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. Before I could process it, another message followed. "Mom will find out soon." That was it. My entire body tensed as I looked around the empty house, the silence almost suffocating. Was this some kind of prank, or something more dangerous? I didn't know what to do. My phone buzzed again with another message. "Do not tell her. She'll regret it." I felt like I was being trapped in a web, and no matter what I did, I couldn't escape. This wasn't a harmless joke. Whoever this was, they were threatening my mom, and it was clear that they knew a lot about us. When Mom came home, I wanted to tell her everything, to demand an explanation, but the look on her face, anxious, guarded, made me think twice. She had the same nervous energy she'd been carrying for days, only now it was worse. I could feel it in the air. "How was your day?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but there was an edge to her voice. "Fine," I replied. "You're still getting texts, aren't you?" I could hear the catch in my voice. "From that person." Mom frowned. Her eyes met mine, wide and searching. She didn't speak for several long moments, and when she did, her voice was strained. "You saw those messages, didn't you?" I nodded, feeling the knot tighten in my stomach. "I told you not to look at my phone," she said softly. I'm just trying to protect you from this, but I don't know how much longer I can keep it a secret." "Who is this person?" I demanded. "Why are they texting us? What do they want?" Her face hardened, her lips tight with fear. "I promised I wouldn't get you involved. I shouldn't have let you see any of this, but there's no turning back now." I was so confused, so scared. Why wouldn't she just tell me what was going on? Why was she keeping me in the dark? The messages kept coming, and I could feel the walls closing in. Whoever was behind this was dangerous, and they were targeting USME, my mom, our family. For the next few days, the tension in the house grew unbearable. Mom's phone constantly buzzed with new messages, each one more cryptic than the last. Stop asking questions. One said, "It's too late now." And then, the last message came. "Tell her everything, and there will be consequences." The weight of those words pressed down on me, suffocating me. What did it all mean? What was I supposed to do? How could I protect my mom when she was the one keeping me in the dark? It was a few days later, when I overheard Mom speaking to someone on the phone in a low, urgent voice, that I learned the truth. She wasn't speaking to a friend or a family member. She was speaking to the person who had been sending those messages. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough to understand. Mom had made some kind of deal years ago, something she'd never told me about, a deal that came with a cost, and now that cost was coming due. When she hung up, I confronted her. "You knew this whole time, didn't you? You knew who it was. You knew what was going to happen." Her face crumpled with regret, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her as someone vulnerable, someone who wasn't invincible. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I should have told you sooner, but I never thought it would come to this." I stood there, stunned, as the weight of the situation crashed down on me. My mom wasn't invincible. She wasn't the protector I always thought she was, and now, the danger was coming closer.
Story 3. The Stranger in the Mirror.
I was never superstitious. I always thought that if something could be explained, it shouldn't scare you. But after what happened that night in front of the mirror, everything changed. It all started with a regular evening routine. I came home after work, tired and a little irritable, like I always am at the end of the week. I decided to take a quick shower to unwind before heading to bed. I had no idea that this evening would change my perception of reality forever. My apartment is a small, two-room place in an old building. The mirror in the bathroom was an old one, and I had often noticed that it distorted reflections slightly, as if it had been warped by time. It wasn't strange, considering everything in this apartment was old, but I never paid it much mind until the night I encountered something I couldn't explain. After my shower, I stood in front of the mirror, drying my hair with a towel. It was a routine moment, something I had done countless times before. But then, I noticed that something was off. I stood there, and yet, my reflection, it wasn't mirroring me properly. I looked like I had stopped moving. But in the mirror, my image continued to move, as if I was walking. At first, I thought it was some optical illusion. But when I stepped back to check, my reflection kept moving as if it didn't follow my actions. It took a step forward, stopped, and then looked at me. I frowned, unable to believe what I was seeing. This was impossible. I was standing still in front of the mirror, yet my reflection seemed to look at me with some kind of strange curiosity, like it had a life of its own. At that moment, a cold shiver ran down my spine. I stepped away from the mirror, but my gaze couldn't break free. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I tried to understand what was happening. Suddenly, my reflection smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was a twisted, eerie grin that couldn't possibly belong to me. I grabbed my towel and rushed out of the bathroom. My breath was ragged, my thoughts were tangled, and my hands were trembling. I tried to convince myself that it was just a glitch, just my mind playing tricks on me, but my heart was still racing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me. I ran to the other room, but I soon realized that I couldn't forget what I had seen in the mirror. The fear was suffocating, and I knew that unless I found an explanation for this event, I wouldn't be able to live normally. I decided to go back into the bathroom. I turned on the light and stood in front of the mirror, expecting to see something unusual, but everything was as it should be, just my usual reflection. I felt a slight relief, thinking that maybe it had all been in my head. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something. My reflection was still there, standing as if frowning, as though it was mimicking me but not exactly matching my movements. It was still like the moment I had just seen. In a panic, I grabbed the mirror and turned it around to look at its back. Nothing strange was there. Everything seemed normal. But when I returned to the bathroom and looked into the mirror again, I realized something was still wrong. My reflection was standing there, exactly as before, but now it wasn't just looking at me, it was looking at something in the corner of the room. As though something had caught its attention, my reflection seemed to be focused on something unseen. I whispered quietly, "What do you want from me?" In response, its eyes lit up with a menacing gleam, and it smiled again, this time revealing something darker. It wasn't my smile. It was something evil, unfamiliar. And then, with horror, I realized that I wasn't just being watched from the mirror. The room had grown cold. In that moment, everything around me faded away, and I found myself in some sort of empty, foggy void, but I could still feel the gaze of that thing that was no longer my reflection. The mirror darkened, and like in a nightmare, I understood that I had become the reflection, and whatever was in the reflection had begun watching me.